Off top, in the 61-62 season, Wilt Chamberlain's third season in NBA, he had 44 games of 50 points or more. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show, joined by just me and my man, Charlie Kravitz, in the building. I love when it's just us two.
Just a couple of cool bros talking about sports.
We're not cool. So this is, earlier, we had several debates about...
Dominic got mad at me for like the third time ever.
I didn't get mad at you. I just...
Frustrated.
You were completely... So first of all, the idea that you and I can determine whether some 25-year-olds or 22-year-olds are cool or not... Absurd. I did a you think that you of all people, and then I asked you if you think you're cool, and you're like, no, I'm not cool.
That's not what I said. I said I was a loser.
But you're not? Okay. Because the only reason why I asked that was because the way you were deciding who's cool and who's not cool was like based on an old guy.
Yeah, but like here's the thing is like I can't play football. I can have opinions about it. Like
agreed.
Like this is the thing is like cool. You know it when you see it.
And that was your cop out, because when I started to corner you in the argument where I was asking you to define why this person is cool and why this person who is very similar to them is not cool to you, because I'm fine accepting that we're talking about a different type of cool.
Yeah.
We're not talking like traditional cool, because we're not that. It's like, who's cool to you?
Yeah.
And then you started explaining why a particular player was cool to you, and then I bring up someone who is almost the exact same. They're like, nope. Not cool. And then you just took the cop out of know it when you see it, which you can say know it when you see it on any damn thing, and then you don't have to define it.
It's like a swaggering, earnest, cool savviness that just comes through.
So then
I just use cool to describe cool, which, by the way, this is all coming off the fact that a brief rundown what we're going to talk about on the show. We have some Travis Hunter talk. Cool guy. We have there is an article about Jayson Tatum where he talks about his place in the NBA and the face of the NBA stuff, which we will get to later. But we should at that point, we'll get to the fact that I have made an all NBA cool and not cool team, which I'm going. Yes, I have. Oh. And it's a perfect list.
It's a terrible list already. I haven't seen it.
But do you want to start with the Travis Hunter stuff, or do you want to start with more Wilt Chamberlain? Do you want to talk about the fact that you today went down a deep dive of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Wilt Chamberlain statistics that were continuing to floor you?
I won't. It wasn't even that I was floored. It was that. At first, I won't even expose what you said that sent me down this deep dive, but I was surprised at how few scoring titles Kareem had, considering he's the all-time leading scorer. But he was also, still a great scorer. But having the single scoring title is absurd. But I don't know. He had 2 70-point games and a 100-point game. Wilt, is, in one season.
Yeah.
And I know, I know that Wilt was a great scorer and whatever, but you would say Wilt's not cool. You would say Wilt's not cool based on the definition that you given me earlier. You would say Wilt's not cool.
I think Wilt is like heroically not cool.
Back in the day, I feel like Wilt was
just
cool.
Because he was slanging that doesn't mean
no. That's not why I say he was cool, because he was like unique. Like he was a ridiculously tall athlete.
Oh, it was one of a kind. Like you could drop in you could drop in the NBA today and we'd be like, what's this guy's 7'1", benching 500 pounds, being a world-class 400-meter runner and a world-class high jumper. Objectively, the athleticism is right. It's jarring.
But I guess my point is, back then is even further back than the guys in the 90s, where I feel like whether you were a cool athlete or not was really just boiled down to how cool the stuff you did was. Like all the off-the-court stuff, like
the Wemby is actually an interesting comp for that, because if there's a YouTube channel called Wilt Chamberlain Archives, and it's videos that are like they've unearthed of him, and like the clips of him getting rebounds where it's not fake, and obviously the camera angles aren't perfect, but he's legitimately got his hand over the top of the backboard and then turns down court and runs, and he's the fastest guy. Obviously he would not be the fastest guy in the NBA today, but the athleticism, it's like incredibly jarring. You see some Bill Russell clips on that. He has a layup where he took off from the free throw line and jumped over a defender. It's like, we joke about them playing against plumbers. Those guys are as athletic as any of the NBA dudes
certain
now.
Guys are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Wilt and Bill Russell, definitely we all agree is cool.
Yeah.
Was cool. Always will be cool. But let's go Travis Hunter. So that's someone we both agree is cool, but that's not what we're talking about. I don't know if you want to frame the discussion that you want to have about Travis Hunter, but I think that we've come to the conclusion that he's in a very specific category, and I know we've talked about how impressive he is, but I don't know that we all appreciate how unique he is. Coming off a conversation about how unique Wilt was, like there aren't that many athletes like.
Well, do you want me? Let me set the stage for this, because Travis Hunter is something that's it's incredibly unique here. It is now being sort of whispered about in draft circles more and more that he's viewed even better as a wide receiver. Destin Adams tweeted that multiple scouts have said that he's just a wide receiver on their board. You have Yahoo Sports comping him to like prime Odell Beckham as his wide receiver comp, which is, I swear, I'm not just saying that. I said that on a couple shows ago, that you watch the way he moves, the way he has like incredibly strong hands. He can goes and stabs the football. But what's interesting is I think because of scarcity of the position, because he was coached by Deion Sanders, because we knew him as a cornerback, we thought that it was someone who would be a cornerback and have packages to play wide receiver, and potentially not full-time two-way, potentially not wide receiver and occasional cornerback. And this is very different. And this is something that we're careening towards a draft season where his value is very unique. We've seen in the last few years unprecedented athletes come into our lives in ways we didn't see coming, whether it was Shohei Ohtani, who we can start comping there, Victor Wembanyama, we're like, we haven't seen this stuff before. And now Travis Hunter. And it happens in a draft that's bereft of a Caleb Williams level quarterback prospect, where it's like, okay, it doesn't really matter. That's not a slight at Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders necessarily. It's just that objectively those guys aren't viewed the same way. And the question that I want to discuss is like, one, where do you think his value lies in the NFL? And if this guy's unprecedented, have we totally overthought this draft process for him being below these quarterbacks?
So I find this is an interesting place to dive in, because I'm someone who's argued in favor of some of the more unpopular selections in recent history, because I think that it's okay when you have a conviction to go out on that. Like if you want robots to make all the decisions, have robots make all the decisions. But I also am someone who recognizes how valuable a quarterback is. And I think if there's a quarterback at the top of the draft that you believe has a chance to be a starting quarterback, not even the greatest quarterback in history or not even one of the best, like not even MVP level quarterback, a legitimate starter where you have someone in that position, you don't have any question, it's really hard for me to imagine a player at any other position that I would take over them. And I think that's where your point is interesting, where this question gets interesting, because it's a very unique draft in that I think maybe some people believe Cam Ward is. I don't know that people think. I guess they think Shedeur is more
it's a higher floor prospect. Yeah,
like a low ceiling, high floor prospect, but they don't expect him to be like a top of the league guy. And so why not go for this unique person in Travis Hunter? And you start comping him to people like Shohei Ohtani, which is like, yeah, obviously, because it's hard to make that comparison, because Shohei, there isn't another position. Like he plays all the positions that matter.
Yeah.
Like he's essentially a quarterback and a middle linebacker. We had these talks when he was doing those ridiculous, pulling off those ridiculous feats where we were like, what would be his comp? We'd have to combine a Hall of Fame quarterback with a Hall of Fame middle linebacker or edge rusher. So like if you could find a player that is that valuable, just the modern way football is made, it's still hard for me to wrap my head around, no matter how good Travis Hunter is, to wrap my head around the idea that he could end up being more valuable than a solid starter at that position, which I hate that about the sport, but it's kind of true, right?
The question I'd have with that is like, you look at the solid starter tier of quarterbacks and like, yes, I'm sure I'll get skewered for this, but outside, I think it's a very clear top group of guys, the Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow. And we just saw a team that was able to build up a roster around a really good, solid quarterback.
Right.
But the vast majority win the Super Bowl. But the vast majority of those teams are not fully satisfied with their quarterback play. And it's like, to me, yeah, of course you could be a Howie Roseman level guy, or you could have Kyle Shanahan's scheme and try and make things work. But the vast majority of the time, it's almost like putting your team into quarterback purgatory for a long time, where they're just good enough to convince you that you don't need to make a change.
Yeah. There's something other than, because I think I get what you're saying. It's like this false hope almost. It's like, yeah, we got a guy that's good enough.
Yeah.
And it happens like every 10 years, somebody will win a Super Bowl with a guy that's just good enough. But it's rare. Most of the time, it's a guy that It's one of the top of the league guys. So like, I get your point. And that's when the question gets difficult, because it's like, are you drafting for like security, or are you drafting for the ceiling?
Yeah.
And I think that fans would want you to draft for the ceiling, but they're going to fire you if you don't present some level of security. But I think we're getting away from Travis Hunter.
Yeah, sorry, I distracted us from the Travis Hunter.
No, that's fine. I think that's the interesting part of this conversation, is the Travis Hunter part. Assuming that you would get full value on both sides. So that's the thing that
we've never seen.
I
don't know. Maybe I'm sure there was someone who was like
in the 60s.
I was gonna
50s.
Say in the 40s, who was gonna. His name's gonna be like Leatherfoot Jones was out there playing. He was the kicker. He was the punter. He was the lead back and the defensive back.
Yeah. Post free agency. Yeah. Like modern football.
Helmets with face masks.
Yeah. We've never seen anything like that. So it's both really exciting, but also unlikely. And I think it's because what ends up happening is you normally have a cornerback that's so talented that they're like, all right, we'll put you over and play receiver, and they're okay. But this guy happens to be really good at both.
Yeah. When you say really good at both,
great at both.
No, but like it jumps off the screen to you, right? How shocking it was, because it doesn't feel like a cornerback playing wide receiver or a wide receiver playing cornerback on either side of the ball. He feels completely fluent, and so the receiver stuff is more shocking to me. I feel like because we viewed him as a cornerback, but the cornerback stuff. Can you remember a college football player with that type of ball skills? Like inherently, I think of the way Tyrann Mathieu played his sophomore season at LSU when he had all of those punt blocks and returns and interceptions. But that also felt a tiny bit like he's one of the best college players I remember, defensive players of our lifetime. I'm saying that, but it also felt there's a bit of luck to that when you have those punt blocks and stuff. The Travis Hunter thing feels over 3 years like he was incredibly special at fighting for footballs in any contested spot as a defensive player. That seems abnormal.
It's really hard to be a defensive player and to have those type of ball skills. I think when you're anticipating a pass, it's a little easier. Obviously, he feels like he's always anticipating the pass. I think that comes from practicing as a wide receiver, and also is very natural. Where you would start him, though, is where it gets a little bit interesting to me, because I do think that you have to kind of prioritize something, and we've always prioritized the cornerback over the receiver when we have a player like this. And I hate to say it, but the more I think about it, I think if I have to choose where I would want him to be more effective in the modern NFL is at receiver, because no matter how good he is at corner, his impact, I think, can be a little bit more mitigated and is less consistent.
By mitigated, you mean they just stopped throwing to him?
So one, they stopped throwing to him, and two, it seems counterintuitive, but I think cornerback is probably more dependent of a position than receiver.
Yeah.
Which, like, we think,
really?
Yeah, we think of receiver as dependent because you need the quarterback to throw you the ball, you need the offensive line to protect for you, and all that stuff needs to work out for you to have success. I also think that cornerback, we don't think about it as much because, like, if you catch a ball on someone, we think it's that person's fault. But a lot of the best corners and defensive backs we've had in this league have been accompanied by really good defensive lines, and I think it doesn't take anything away from them. But if you don't have the defensive front, it's really hard to play good corner. And I also think that from a game plan standpoint, and it sucks because I'm a cornerback and I remember this, seeing this happen, but the better you are at corner, the more your own coaches game plan for you to fail. Whereas on the other side, the better you are at receiver, the more your coaches game plan for you to succeed.
And when you mean game plan for you to fail,
I think it's putting pressure on you.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're a receiver that's good, you see Justin Jefferson, they put him in a slot, they put him in motion, they try to force matchups on linebackers.
Get him in space. Get him the ball in space is an easy spot, and it's good for your offense.
Like, they spend all week like, hey, how can we get Justin in a situation where he can succeed? Oh, their best corner only plays on the right. We're going to line him on the left. Oh, they got a weak nickel. We're going to put him in the slot. They miss tackles a lot, and Justin's good after yak. We're going to throw him a quick pass. You know what you do when you have what you believe to be is a great corner? You say, find their best receiver. Go guard him. We're not going to give you any help. And inevitably, they're going to have success a lot of times, but they're going to fail sometimes too. So it's like, it's a tough thing to invest in because you still need the D-line to play well. And a good pass with a good receiver, it's going to beat good coverage all the time. So I think, and I don't know if I'm right, but I think like salary trends suggest that a great receiver is more valuable in the league than a great cornerback.
Which is interesting because it feels like the scarcity is much bigger, but I also wonder value-wise, does it feel like there's just a longer tail on receiver? Because it's like the second there's any drop-off in corner, you go from being elite to one of the guys, where with receivers, this is this gradual scale. So you like in contract stuff and value, it's like you kind of know what you're going to pay for.
I think it's all connected to what I was saying before about the scheming is when you're a receiver, there's less, which feels kind of counterintuitive, but again, we can game plan around you. So we might, if you still have the talent, but you don't have the stamina necessarily to do this all game, we can draw up 20 plays for you. And you can go through the motions on the other 40 plays, but we know, and we're only going to run you deep 3 times today. We know, and you know, that this is the play that I got to be on. And then if something starts to fall off, you lose a little deep speed or you lose a little quickness, we're going to stop running those routes. We find ways to we are strategizing for ways to extend your effectiveness. With a corner, like you don't get alert. They're like, oh, this is the one. This is the play. Like you're out there the whole time. And if you have any slip, we can call different coverages, but that then limits our defense.
Yeah.
We can call different things to protect you, but in that case, why are we paying you? We got to protect you. And so I think that's why it would appear that they have a shorter tail, or not appear, they do have a shorter tail, and their value is a little bit mitigated because you're like, hey, either you are the finest athlete in all of the league, or you lose a little bit and now you're just like everybody else.
The craziest thing about this is like, and I totally get if Travis Hunter plays receiver, like it genuinely continues to jump off the screen, like how he moves as a wide receiver. He might be the rare person where he actually has margin as a defensive back athletically.
Right.
Like athletically, he seems so special and so bendy and so explosive, and he's big for a corner. He's listed 6'1". We'll see how he measures for the combine next week, but like he's clearly not like a smaller corner. Like he seems like someone who might have a long career being able to shadow guys in the NFL, but that's also impossible. I guess significantly harder to project.
That would be something we've never seen.
Champ, Dion, Darryl Green, those type of guys, Rod Woodson.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm thinking about it differently than you are. Yep. Those guys were really great for much of their careers, but I'm thinking
when
you start talking about like you're saying margin as far as his athleticism.
Yeah, like Darryl Green and Dion and Champ in particular.
Yeah.
I guess Rod Woodson moved to safety, but those are guys who were so comically athletic, even compared to NFL peers, that it seemed like in their later years when they aged, they still had sat, but they were still like Darryl Green's was like almost 40 running with the number one wide receivers.
Darryl Green's still putting out tapes of him doing
running
athletic feats.
4.6,
like
yeah.
60 something. I started to have a flashback because, as you know, I'm sure I've told you this story before, but for those who don't know, like I play with Champ in Denver, and absurd numbers at the combine, like really an exceptional top 3 to 4 at all of the skills at combine, like a really good athlete. I got to Denver and was like, this is awesome. I'll do exactly what Champ Bailey does, then I'll be great. It took me a week and a half to be like, all right, you're useless, because my body can't do that. He was bigger than me, stronger than me, faster than me, quicker than me, smarter as a football player also. Like, it was just an impossible thing to do. And evidence to that fact was he had, it was 8 interceptions on 53 targets in an entire season.
I mean, it's comical.
That is crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah.
They only target him like 50 or 60 times. Like, I'll never forget it. And he picked off 8 of them.
Yeah.
Bananas.
But like also like he was an all-pro in his 13th season.
That's incredible.
As a cornerback.
Yeah, that's a long tail. That is quite a long tail. That is
really unique. And like a part of that size too. Like he's obviously more powerful athlete than Travis Hunter is. You can tell that like with build wise, but it's like those guys, it does feel like the term generational gets thrown around a lot, but with cornerbacks, it seems much more common. to have the fall off like Nnamdi Asomugha or Darrell Revis or Richard Sherman, where one day you just can't run with the guys the same way and you start becoming like a target.
Yeah.
And those guys are great players, like the multiple Hall of Famers we noticed. But
you know what would be interesting is, like, as we talk about this, I guess Nnamdi might be the best example of that, of what I'm thinking when he was in Oakland. But all the good cornerbacks that we know were like on good defenses.
Mm-hmm.
Like
this is a point that no one talks about, by the
right.
way. And you saw this with Sauce Gardner versus Derek Stingley at the beginning of their career.
Yeah.
Where Sauce Gardner came into, he's across from DJ Reed with a really good defensive line and a scheme. And you see he succeeded much earlier than Stingley, even though they're similar level prospects.
And Stingley had a rough start, and now their D-line is an incredible pass rush in Houston, and now Stingley is an all-pro. And like, it's not to take anything away from them, but it's to the original point that I was making. And I think that NFL GMs recognize, because they aren't paying them nearly as well, they're playing the receivers, but cornerback's a pretty dependent position. Your season can go up and down based on what's happening in front of you and around you.
So in theory, if you're at the top of the draft, and I don't know if he'll go 1 or 2. It seems like if you look at the perceived odds, there's a 60% chance Cam Ward's going to be the number 1 pick. There's a 36% chance that Abdul Carter is going to be the number 1 pick, and then it goes Shador and then Travis Hunter. But what's interesting is those top 2 teams actually might be able to support him at defensive back more than at wide receiver, which is interesting because, like, the Titans had a really good run defense and were a bend but don't break defense. And if he was in Cleveland, in theory, across from Denzel Ward with a powerful defensive line, if they're able to retain Myles Garrett, like, that might be a place where he could have a bigger impact than if he's catching balls from whoever's playing Mayo Messiah, or I don't know who's the quarterback for Cleveland next year.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've been thinking about what position Travis Hunter plays from the perspective of Travis Hunter, not from the perspective of the acquiring team. And I think the idea of putting him opposite Denzel Ward would just be really enticing for me, especially if they don't have a quarterback that they can trust. But and we haven't even talked about Abdul Carter, who I think is like, I know you're really high on him as far as being an impact player.
He just feels like a sure thing when you watch him. It's like, I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Fame player, but like, he's so bendy. He's so explosive. He looks like the archetype of a Parsons, Von Miller style player. The odds are stacked he will not be that good. But I do think we're going to know next week, he might have comical combine numbers.
He did the whole off-ball linebacker to pass rusher position change.
The reverse Zach Bond.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the Micah Parsons.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, but Parsons didn't do it full-time until he was in the league and became one of the best players.
Is there a situation that you think you'd want Travis Hunter to go to? Because I have one near the top of the draft.
Give it to me.
New England.
Really?
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting to see. It's like that's a choose your own adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Across from Christian Gonzalez with Mike Vrabel is really good. You have someone who's been a really successful head coach, or him growing with Drake May. Like, there aren't many, if you really think he's like a prime Odell Beckham player style receiver, which a lot of people seem to, like, that's a game changer for someone like Drake May as a quarterback who could be hyper aggressive and extend plays and getting the ball to the best athlete in the NFL, because he might walk in and be the best athlete in the league.
I don't know. Let's not get crazy.
Up there with the Lamars, the Jamar Chases, those freaky guys. Like, this is abnormal. Do you have anything on the Cam Ward stuff? How interesting of a prospect he is?
I know you have a lot on Cam Ward. That's your guy. So I think Cam Ward, the way that I think about Cam Ward, and I need to take a couple days to just lock in and watch all of Cam's games and watch a bunch of these players' games. But my feeling about Cam Ward, I think you agree with me on this, is like, he's a high ceiling, high floor type of guy, where it's like
high ceiling, low floor.
Excuse me, high ceiling, low floor. Yeah, high ceiling, high floor. Yeah, those are rare. We'll get those.
Yeah.
But he's a high ceiling, low floor type of guy, because I think his development has been unique.
Yeah, it's just like so fascinating to me that the way he has succeeded at different levels. So like, if you do, he played in a wing T offense in Texas and had one offer coming out of high school as an incarnate word. He threw 7 touchdown passes his last year of high school football. And then he goes on to be the all-time leading passer in college football, and he succeeds at Incarnate Word. And you're like, this isn't going to keep going at Washington State. And he just kills everyone at Washington State. And he goes to Miami. And it feels like a Pied Piper cult of personality thing, where you flash to that Miami team on the sideline and there'd be chaos and they'd be down by 20 points. And the guy would have the blank serial killer stare and then go out there and like things would lock in and be quieter. And the physical traits of his arm strength and his mobility and like the way he's able to throw from different angles, it's not like that is becoming much more common in the NFL, but in this draft, it feels like he's the one who like you could hit a home run with. But it's also unique that he's been so successful, and you watch the tape, he doesn't really look like an NFL quarterback with how sloppy he is.
Right. And I mean, that's the thing is like, I could see how he's obviously going to be a bunch of coaches and GMs are going to fall in love with him because they're going to go through the story that you went through also and say, this poor guy's never been coached.
Yeah.
Look at all this raw talent. He's never really been anywhere long enough for anyone to coach him. And he has the mindset that you like. I know you've enjoyed all the videos of him, and
I loved him talking to Shedeur.
Yeah, which is like,
it was awesome.
Yeah, it was well done. He out-talked Shedeur, and he seems, to your point, like has whatever that it quarterback thing is that when he's on the team, people feel a little bit better about their chances and have confidence in him, and that's something that you can't really measure, but does feel like it matters. Which it's connected to your ability too, but it has something to do with your personality and how authentic, I guess, you come off to your teammates. And so I could imagine easily that, I guess I could also imagine a situation where if he's properly recruited, that he has an entirely different career.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. And then everyone is falling over themselves to get him because of how high end some of his traits are. But I could also imagine in this situation, some coaches falling in love with him. But the challenging thing is what we already mentioned is like someone like that, it could go either way. It's like he could address whatever issues you find in him and he could be great, or he could never really address those issues and kind of be a bust.
I just like, it's so weird. It feels like for every, sloppy guy like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, or it's like entices you into a Zach Wilson,
right,
or a Trey Lance, like that's the downside of it, where it's like guys who can do special things. It's impossible to expect someone to recreate that. And with Cam Ward, we see the flaws in front of you. That's what's really unique about him as a quarterback prospect is like, yeah, because obviously his stats are ridiculous, but like you put on a tape and you're like, this guy looks like he's walking around the pocket. He threw that sidearm off his back foot for no reason other than it looked really cool.
The mentality stuff is hard to, I mean, there's so many things about the situation that's going to determine how successful the quarterback is.
Yeah.
One of the things that's hugely important is the mentality stuff. And I think that given that you can't really understand someone's full mentality through interviews and stories, you accept that to be true, but he has the stories. that would lead you to believe that, you know what, this guy's gonna get it right down to the trash talking with Shedeur, where he you want to retell this story for those who haven't seen it, because I know you love it.
Yeah, he's doing a drill with Shedeur, and it's the first drill, and Shedeur goes to get water, and Cam Ward's like, drinking water already? It's the first drill, you drinking water? And Shedeur says, it's Gatorade. I get paid to drink Gatorade. And you can just see the smile creep across Cam Ward's face, being like, I got him. And then he just starts to goes, I get paid to play football. And it was like the encapsulation of where he was like, this is like, I'm the guy who came from Incarnate Word, and you're the guy who was coached by your dad and has been like set up to succeed in certain ways that I never was. And it just like, I don't know, the mythology of him, right. It feels Baker Mayfield-y, the walk-on to superstar. And I know that faded with Baker in certain ways, but that's the person who it reminds me the most of. He's not as brash. It's like somewhere between Baker and Joe Burrow of like, he has the Joe Burrow thing where like, I feel like everyone at Miami was like, we're going to win the national title because we have Cam Ward.
I like Cam Ward.
Yeah.
I hope it works out for him. I hope it works out for all those players, but you started getting down the path that I think leads us to another topic that we want to hit.
Yeah. So this is an article I think both of us I think we had the reaction where you see the headline and you're like, this isn't going to be that interesting. This is going to be chalk. It's an article by Michael Lee, who interviewed Jayson Tatum, and it's about being the face of the NBA. And there were some revealing details in it where Jayson Tatum, maybe it's the transcription, but it's certainly the way it seems that he is more bothered by his place in the NBA zeitgeist than we realize, that he's more bothered that he didn't win a finals MVP last year, that he's not viewed as this beloved superstar, despite the fact that he could be a one-team guy in Boston, that he's a champion, that he's continues to improve. So when you read these quotes, what do you think about this? That this guy's like,
well, the first thing I think is Michael Lee was it was a very interesting way that he wrote this, because it feels like he wrote it in a way where it seems like he is supporting what Jayson Tatum, the messaging that Jayson Tatum wants to deliver, while also including all the quotes that he gave him that were contradictory. So well done, Michael Lee, because I imagine if Jason's reading it, he's like, yeah, that's what I think. But as I'm reading it, I'm just like thrown off by, like, every time he says I don't care about how they treat me, he then follows it with a complaint about how he's done all these things and no one talks about me the way that someone who's done all these things should be talked about. And it feels like to me, and I'm definitely editorializing, but it does feel a little bit like he doesn't know who he is because he's expecting something different than he's getting. And he's like, this is what they want.
Yeah.
I'm giving them everything that they want. I'm doing all the things, but I'm not getting what I expect. And then rather than what I would say, honestly being like, this sucks, he's like, I don't even care.
Yeah.
I don't want none of that.
Some of the quotes he said, like, I don't want to insert myself into debates. And he lists off, did he win a championship? Yes. Did he win gold medals? Yes. Was he always a part of winning seasons? Was he always first team All-NBA? Yes. Face of the NBA, they can always debate, but I check all of the boxes. Then they asked if he feels he's honestly appreciated. Appropriately appreciated. He said, honestly, no. He talked about the blind resume, that someone with his resume should be viewed as the face of the NBA and appreciated more. I thought it was weird the way he talked about the leading the team in points, rebounds, and assists and not winning Finals MVP.
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, that's true. He's one of the 5 guys ever to do that. But we also saw those series, and it was a ascendance from Jaylen Brown, and it was a team effort. Like, that's not a
right.
I don't know.
And what was also weird about that to me is that sentiment feels inconsistent with the player that we know him to be.
He said, I did my part on it too.
But I mean, that's like, I think that, and I'm probably stealing this from you, is like, he's molded his game in a way that seems more unselfish than it was when he was coming in. And for him to then come back in the second and be like, hey, but you guys aren't treating me right.
It feels like he's caught between two worlds with, like, you know, he was the Mamba mentality guy. It was the cringy thing of him texting Kobe with I got you, bro, and sending out the screenshot. There was the stuff after the championship where it felt like every line was a canned line. They're like, I can't believe it. We did it. But then he didn't win Finals MVP this last year. He went to the Olympics and got benched, despite the fact that he was going in as this triumphant hero. And, like, Derek White played more than him. Drew Holiday played more than him. And he came out of it. And it's like, when you think of the flaws of Jayson Tatum early in his career, it's like streaky jump shooter and not an additive passer. Willing, but not additive. He's come in and been like a point guard for this team. He's been an excellent passer. He improved his jump shooting. It feels incredibly egoless the way that he's allowed this team to transition from coaches and different personnel to work with everyone. And so, like I get it that he might be frustrated by his place in the landscape, but also, like, there's a really cool way to handle this, which is like, hey man, you might not view it this way, but guess what? The title runs through Boston and you're going to have to come through me. Mm-hmm. That's a lot cooler than being like, I check all the boxes. You guys should like me more. You can't tell people who to like. Yeah. This is one of the things about sports and culture. Like, it's drawn with a natural charisma on this stuff that he's missing, that you can't just, like, build a resume and tell people who should be beloved and cool.
I talked to some like young people who want to work in sports last night, and this reminds me of one of the things that I said to them. And, like, by no means am I some, like, great all-knowing person who can give great advice. One of the things I told them was, don't trust everything that I say or trust anything that anyone says. But I did say, like, you can't change the world around you. You can't change the people you work with. You can't change any of that stuff. You can only change your behavior. Yeah. So, like, in this situation with Jayson Tatum, it's like, yeah, maybe this seems unfair. Maybe it is unfair.
Yeah.
But telling people it's unfair ain't gonna make it fair. It just makes you seem like a whiner. Yeah. And it's, I don't know. And then trying to pretend like you don't care on top of it just is like, it to me, and this is possibly because it marries well with one of the narratives that I've been singing about the early professionalization of sports, is to me, it feels like at some point, like his whole identity got tied up in with how well he is playing as a basketball player and how people outside of it respond to him as a basketball player. And so when this is kind of the first time the spotlight is so hot on him, and when he does all the things, because prior to this, he could be like, all right, yeah, I get it. I haven't won a title.
Yeah.
Or like, I get it. I haven't done whatever. Check. He checked the last box. You know what it reminds me of? My beloved Kevin Durant. Reminds me of Kevin Durant was like, all right, all I need is a championship and everybody get off my back. He got the title and he's very confused. Like, why is everybody still on my back? Is Jayson Tatum similar?
Is anyone on Jayson Tatum's back right now?
That's the problem.
Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's different. I guess it's not on my back. It's,
it doesn't feel the way you thought it
it's
was.
like, it doesn't feel the way. Why aren't they treating me like they treated this person? And for Durant, it was like LeBron left and went and created a super squad and won a championship, and y'all treated him like the king. I left and created a super team and won a championship and beat LeBron, and y'all treat me like a cheater. And Jason, I know this upsets you, so I'm not going to
I'm not taking the bait.
Don't take the bait.
I'm more interested in the Tatum aspect of it.
And for Jayson Tatum, like, I get it. The thing is, it feels like I'm being more critical than I actually feel like, is because I understand that I would probably feel this way too. So don't you think you would?
I don't know. It just depends what you want. Like, the thing that I'm dead serious. Like, it's like it depends if you're like, I think there are certain athletes and certain people who'd be like, good, keep doing this. I'm going to keep winning and like shut you guys up. And to him, it's like he's really let us in that it bothers him in a way that I think is interesting. I might be that way. I'm not homicidally competitive in this stuff, but like, I don't know. It's
I guess
really
I don't know. Yeah. Maybe there are some athletes like that. Maybe there are some people like that. My guess is when we've all agreed that there is a finish line.
Yeah.
And I crossed it, and y'all don't give me my laurels?
But you don't think that like Tim Duncan loved the fact that all the talk was about Shaq and Kobe?
No, I think Tim Duncan genuinely didn't give a
That's what I mean. Like,
yeah,
I think
that's different than what you're saying.
I think he actually loved it. I think he loved it. He was like, focus on these guys.
He didn't use it as fuel.
I think he was like, focus on these guys.
Yeah.
I don't want this attention. And I'm going to go and like kick the out of these guys for any moment of weakness over this decade, and then like count the rings at the end, buddy.
Because I think that the quotes that Jayson Tatum wants us to believe are true about him were actually true about Tim Duncan
or Kawhi.
I think those guys actually just didn't care.
Yeah,
I think the people who do care, it's impossible for them to not recognize that the world is treating them like. I'm not saying that he's right.
Yeah.
I'm saying that if I were him and I came in the league and was really good, and you said, but you got to do this, I did it. You got to do this, I did it. Win a championship, be unselfish, I did it. Go win a gold medal. I was there when they did it. And then I would be like, hold up. But now, where is my crown?
I get it. And he's also like, the Durant thing is after this because he was the he's next guy for a while. And like there's a little Anthony Davis to him. Like personality wise, where it was like he's next, he's this, and he continued to perform really well and do well in the playoffs. And it's like Anthony Davis was maybe the best player on a title team with LeBron James, and he won the Finals MVP. Is incredible. And then it was like, whatever, we'll keep going. But like the thing there's so much to unpack here, but it's also like, I guess I would ask you this: to be a high level athlete at this level, you have to have some supreme confidence and delusion in yourself. But like, quite frankly, and this is the best year of Jayson Tatum's career, I think you could make the argument that he's finally one of the 5 best players in the world and is having one of the 5 best seasons. But that's not really how the face of the NBA works. It doesn't move as quickly as you think. Like, guys retain it for a while. And obviously there are dignitaries of the game that have held on longer than we expected, who are moving away from the face of the game stuff with LeBron, Durant, and Curry. And then there's a truly generational player in Jokic who has opted not to be the face of the NBA in certain ways. But like Tatum is studied this stuff. He kind of knows that if you're the 6th best player in the world and you're not ultra charismatic, you're probably not gonna be that guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I feel like I'm really criticizing him, but I'm not trying to. Like, it's just like a fact of it.
you got to be dominant though. Like that's the thing. Face of the NBA is always someone. I mean, as we talk about, I don't know when we talk about face of the NBA, how many faces of the NBA have there been? LeBron. Before LeBron, I guess we say Kobe some.
Definitely Kobe.
Definitely Jordan.
I was gonna say. I would say.
Then like
don't forget
Larry
Shaq,
and Magic.
Shaq was there too.
Shaq was a face. Yeah.
And I think it changed with Larry and Magic, but then it's Jordan, Larry, and Magic.
We're saying nothing before Larry and Magic.
Yeah, because it's like
I agree.
There's too many odd racial components of like, do we appreciate Kareem even though he has had like the most exemplary career in high school, college, the NBA possible, where he shout out Chuck Klosterman's book, Who Wears the Black Hat, who talked about the fact that O.J. Simpson was significantly more famous in the 1970s than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and how that we didn't understand villainy at that point. But
I'm glad that we cleaned up all the racial dynamics instead.
Well, good point. I have no rebuttal. It was an interesting chapter of the book.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think that the face of the league thing has become something that we've kind of created. And it's always like this league has been unique in that it's always had like a leading man in the way that movies have a leading man and other sports don't have that. And right now it feels like the door is open because LeBron and Steph, which they kind of fall. I mean, LeBron definitely falls into that category. And Steph, I think, for stretches carried part of that mantle. It's always been someone who's been utterly dominant. As good as Jayson Tatum is, I think that holds him up some is he's never been like, even he didn't win the finals MVP, which I know he thinks that he deserves it because of how he led his team all his categories. Like, I don't know, those guys are always utterly dominant. And I think Anthony Edwards made the comment that like, it's Wemby's league. It's like, yeah, if Wemby's healthy, he speaks English just fine. He's charismatic. He's going to be the face of the league. He's
going to, like, what we have now is, like, honestly, like, maybe we're uncovering what is that Tatum's an amazing player. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to maybe have a run where he wins multiple championships with this Boston team in a prestige franchise, doing things the right way when people are hopping teams and, like, building it organically.
The right way.
We'll say, I think that in quotes, like the traditional, the right way. And it's obviously Wemby. Wemby is like, we talked about this. We've talked about this ad nauseum. The Christmas Day game was like the moment that you're like, no, like this is the biggest draw in the league. This is something that we've never seen before. This feels like someone who is destined to be one of the best players of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that, he's not as popular as like an Anthony Edwards type, where you want to talk about like guys who could be the face, like the charisma and earnest stuff with Anthony Edwards lets us ignore any of the faults that he has because we're like, this guy rules. Yeah. Like this guy is so charismatic and fun to watch and so unique. And
he was touching on that dominance in the playoffs. It was doing unthinkable things. Yeah.
And like, look, Luka Doncic is going to be on the Lakers for the next 5 years. If he's fitting in shape and they're a championship contender and it's the prestige franchise, he's just quite frankly been a better basketball player than Jayson Tatum for their entire times in the NBA. I know Tatum's made 3 all NBAs and Luka's made 5, and Tatum's a much better defender and he's sacrificed more for the team to win than Luka has. But I think it's pretty fair to say that in totality, he's been the better guy. And like, he's got to be looking there being like, this guy is going to be so famous. He's going to get the things that I want, even though he's out there drinking Coors Lights and smoking hookah and like getting called the Fat Mamba. Like he's like, I'm the Mamba mentality guy, not Fat Mamba.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is also just like authenticity.
Yeah,
it's like and that's the huge strike against Jayson Tatum because everyone, like, who am I to say whether he's authentic or not? But it's really hard.
This was authentic. This article was authentic.
It's really hard when the perception of you is inauthentic and then you go and mimic all the championship reactions of past. It's like you, speaking of checking boxes, it felt like he had a list of all the things.
He did.
Like,
he definitely did.
Of all the things that you're supposed to say and do after a title. And he checked them all off, like short of crying on the floor and the back holding onto the ball like Jordan did when he came back, is he did all the rest of them.
Yeah. And he's a Kobe guy, so he did the Kobe picture.
He did do the Kobe picture.
Do you want my list of coolest guys in the NBA?
Yeah, we'll end it on coolest guys in the NBA list. I wanted to get into tush push talk, but I don't think we got time.
We can do that. That's going to be there for a while.
All right, cool.
my point guard. I built this like a basketball team.
Okay, so these are the coolest guys by position.
Yeah.
Okay.
Point guard, I put John Morant.
Ja Morant.
I know that there are.
So we're off the court transgressions will not influence our decision making.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
He comes off as cool.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards at the 2.
Off the court transgressions will not influence our decisions.
Jimmy Butler's at the 3.
Pooping in your pants, potentially, allegedly, will not influence our decisions.
If you are cool enough that we forgive you for pooping your pants and we don't roast you like Paul Pierce, that is a definition of cool. Like, they literally,
Oh, gosh.
he couldn't control his bowels. We're like, it, that guy's cool.
Allegedly. He never copped to it, right? Like,
No.
okay,
He didn't even ingest it like a cool guy.
Cool guys don't address it? All right.
Nah, just let it ride.
All right.
Jokic at the 4 because there's nothing cooler than just being as authentic as that. I'm going to go play with my horses and then drop 50.
Gosh, see, this is people. Now you know why it was very hard to have a conversation about cool with Charlie Kravitz because, I mean, I guess this boils down to authentic, right?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, Wemby's at the 5.
Hold on. Ja. All right. Anyway,
Ja might be too authentic.
Is he?
Yes.
Is he?
Yes.
No.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but there are maybe the lack of impulse control is
Okay.
authentic.
That is definitely authentic young man.
Wemby at the 5.
Yeah, Wemby's cool.
He's very cool. And then I have a 6th man.
6 man.
This is the most authentic person in the NBA.
Okay.
The most refusing to be mocked, even though people try to mock him. Jared McCain. He's a 6th man.
You get no argument out of me. Jared McCain, if he couldn't hoop, least cool guy in the league.
Yeah.
But he came into the league acting very differently. So much so that it was like a podcast topic for everyone. It was like, what's this young boy doing? Then he started cooking.
Yeah.
And now that is like him doing his dances or whatever. Don't nobody care as long as you can hoop. So yeah, Jared McCain, I think he can be the 6th man and the unofficial team captain.
I love that. And I have I started making not cool team, but I just it's just Chris Paul.
I refuse to accept that.
It's just Chris Paul.
Chris Paul's super cool.
No, he's not.
What about what's his doppelganger from the commercials? Calvin? Curtis Paul? Something. Oh,
Cliff.
it's not Curtis.
Cliff Paul.
Cliff Paul. Curtis.
Cliff.
Calvin? Calvin's, you know where that's from? All right. Calvin's from the McDonald's commercials. You might be too young.
I have no idea what you're talking
McDonald's commercials way back in the day where it was the black, you know how McDonald's does black commercials?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the black commercial about working at McDonald's. It was like Calvin got a job as like a fry kid and worked his way all the way up to manager. I'll Google it. I'm sure it's on YouTube.
I'm sure it is.
I'll share it with you. All right, Charlie. This has been fun. Thanks to you. Thanks to all the great producers. I love you, Podville. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.